Relax, the keyboard is off, the press box is closed, and the mic is just getting warmed up as the guardian of the blue paint turned writer is about to enlighten us. The show where the writer is fresh off the presses and the ink is not dry. For this week's show, a new year, a new coach, and a new Flyers team. Welcome to the Hockey Writers Inc. Join Lance and Steel as we bring you all the latest on the Flyers.
Hi guys, welcome back to another edition of the Hockey Writers Inc. As always, I'm your host, Lance Green.
And I'm your co-host, SteelFlyers. And boy, I'll tell you what, we got a special New Year's Eve show for you.
Sure.
You're right. We had kind of a Christmas Eve show for you last week, so this is kind of a New Year's Eve show for you today. So, how you doing, Lance? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Oh man, it's that week between Christmas and New Year, where it's like that longest week.
Right.
And so you're off tomorrow, right?
I am.
Yeah, me too, right? Yeah, all right. So there you go. Yeah, the longest week. Speaking of the longest week, we have a new year, a new coach, and a new Flyers team. Maybe, you think? I don't know. We'll see. But a lot of things have happened over the last couple of weeks here with the Flyers, and man, I'll tell you what. We're gonna do something here a little different. We're gonna step back into the waves of time, and we're gonna take you back when the Flyers were relevant, back when there was an owner who seemingly cared about whether or not his team won or lost. Back when a time when the general manager would bet the farm for one guy to play for 14 games. Right? Okay. And we're talking about a great article here. Our guardian of the blue paint was feeling a bit nostalgic this past week with his latest masterpiece posted to the FlyersNittyGritty.com website. With this one, NHL greats who were with the Flyers for a good time, but not a long time. And Lance, man, all I have to say is, gosh, I agree with you on this one. I can't even argue. All right. This article was posted, and man, when I started reading this article, I was like, wow, man, what do you know? A pattern is starting to develop.
Yes.
Because you start seeing this about every guy and every, all right. Lance, talk to me about this article and what inspired you to write this article. What made you want to talk about this? What made you feel so nostalgic?
Sure. Well, with the team playing the way they've been playing, not really relevant, maybe getting some wins against some bottom-dwelling teams. Not much to get excited about when you have to have overtime or a shootout to, win against the worst teams in the league. But, we'll digress about that. But it got me thinking about some teams of old, the Flyers when they were relevant, like you said, and what might make them relevant once again. And I got to thinking about some moves that the Flyers have done over the past, decades and decades of hockey, and started to see that pattern emerge. And although I liked the, charisma, whatever, of our great Ed Snyder to go out and demand, some of these players that were absolutely elite, some of the, league's best players of all time.
Hall of Famers,
first ballot Hall of Famers. And
Cup-winning players.
Yes. And I think his intentions were there. But every time they were able to do so, it was somebody that was, well past their prime, 35 years or older or something for the most part for most of these guys. And, betting the farm, like you said, to acquire some of these guys for a playoff run, which, is nice when your team is actually in the running for the playoffs every year, like our team used to be.
Which I was just going to say, which during those years,
For
I mean,
sure.
there was a stretch of 30 years where the Flyers made the playoffs 28 years of those 30 years.
Yeah.
So
out of their 54 years of existence, they've been in the playoffs 40 times. And that's pretty darn incredible.
That's pretty relevant for most of your existence. So you know what I mean?
Right. But since Ed Snyder's passing, it hasn't been the case as frequently. So I got to thinking, you know, it would be nice to have these first round picks and all this stuff to acquire some of these players, these type players like the Austin Matthews, the Connor McDavids, the Nathan McKinnons over the years with our number 1 overall picks or number 2 overall picks. But as we all know, the Flyers don't really have that great of success when they are drafting that high. Nolan Patrick in 17, second overall, and 10 years before that with James Van Riemsdyk, second overall.
Oh, man.
So, I got to thinking and really said, okay, well, could we take, Mr. Snyder's approach and Bobby Clarke's approach, but add a twist to it? And that twist is, hey, maybe we don't go and repeat ourselves and go out and get these players well past our prime, but just an idea here. Why don't we overpay for a player that's just coming into his prime or in the height of his prime? And, we'll explain some examples of that over the recent years where teams have been lucky enough to do that, and it's kind of paid off for them.
To some extent.
You
know what I mean? There's some players out there. There's like the Corey Perrys, where wherever he goes, he's successful because he goes to those good teams, and he's a good player. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to have a guy like that on the team. You know what I mean? I wouldn't necessarily give up a first-round draft pick for him.
Right.
But I would be happy to trade a player to get somebody of his caliber, or like Brandon Point. I mean, somebody like that, you know what I mean? Or, like you said, like a McKinnon, a player like of that kind of caliber that you can bring in here that is not going to necessarily demand. I mean, okay, McKinnon is the odd one out here, I think, because he'll be able to command, the upper echelon, the $8.5 to $9.5 million. But the other guys, not so much. You can get away with $6-7 million, a year for these guys. Some of them. That's the kind of guys I think the Philadelphia Flyers need to go after. And some of these guys that you talked about in this article. I mean, gosh, man, some of the guys that you talked about were who's who.
Yeah.
All right, the first name that just jumps right off at me is the Paul Coffey one.
Right.
Right. And then right after that is the Beezer. Oh, man. What a great – did you see how he worded – not to get off topic here, but he is now the general manager of the United States United States World Junior team.
Yes.
And the statement that he came out and said about how disappointed he was, not just for the United States, but for all the guys, all the people involved. I mean, that's just just a classy guy.
Yeah, he was always a classy guy.
What is it with goalies? What is goalies just classy guys all the way across the board? I mean, they're snarly, nasty people on the ice, but they're like these great classy guys off the ice.
Maybe.
All right. I mean, what? Okay. But talk to me a little bit about Paul Coffey. Talk to me a little bit about the Beezer. Talk to me a little bit about Stiller. I mean, so these were some of the guys that we traded for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I put this out, there's a lot of people that wanted to give me other names and different stuff like that, and there's been others. This article could have kept going on.
Yeah, right. You could have just done a series of this, right? Like 6 or 7 articles, probably.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. one of the names that I got the most was Dale Halachuk, as well.
Oh
He was a
yeah.
phenomenal player.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite up to the. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, but not quite up to the Paul Coffeys and Daryl Sittlers or Peter
I got you.
Forsbergs, Yagers that are some of the 100 best players of
Yeah.
all time, but still very relevant in the same conversation. But yeah, to going back through history, you got to start out with maybe Sittler, and they obtained him back in '81. He, out of all the players listed, was relatively, 30. Well, he was 31, so he wasn't ancient when they acquired him, and he had some pretty darn good years here.
Yep.
So I think that 84 goals, 94 assists, and 178 points as a Flyer. He definitely helped the team. He was definitely needed at that time, and really started to transition him out of the need of Bobby Clark so much,
Yeah.
having to rely on him so much, where the Flyers are, still having to rely on Claude Giroux so heavily. And that's kind of like, where I thought the Flyers really made a great pickup with him. It would have been great of course, if he was more like 26 when they did it, but,
Right.
you know, but
But they always seem to get there like a day late and a dollar short.
for sure.
Like you bring this guy in who's 35. No. So you bring a guy in when he's 25.
Yes.
So he's got a little bit of tread left on the tire instead of, I mean, to me, the biggest burn over the last, couple of years, I think, is the one you mentioned in the article, and that was the Adam Oates.
Yes.
That whole debacle. I don't care what anybody says or call it. To give up, when I looked at what we gave up, like to actually see that written out, I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? And then I went and I looked and I looked up his stats, right, to see like, all right, well, how many games did he play and whatever.
Yeah.
It was pretty appalling. The fact that the Flyers gave up a first round pick,
a second, and
a third
for a 39-year-old player
that played for 14 games. 14.
Five in the postseason.
Yeah, and 5 of them in the post.
So I mean, that Adam Oates. When I went back, I knew he was a great player. I remember him playing all the time. He's a great player.
Yeah.
Elite playmaker, loved to pass the puck. But I didn't know he had that many points. Really, when I sat back and looked at it, I've forgotten how good he was.
Yeah.
And you understand why the Flyers would want that kind of guy, but maybe not when he's 39 years old.
I mean, you could have gotten him a couple of years sooner. You think, man? Look, that's to me that one and the one that you didn't even mention, but that one really wasn't a trade deadline acquisition, but the whole the goalie situation with bringing in the Russian. Oh gosh, his name is escaping me now.
Brizgalov?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that in itself was a whole nother. Dude, we could probably do a series of articles just on that one, right?
Missed chances with signings and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
But
that one still hurt for years afterwards.
Still hurts. Yeah. Anyway.
And on top of that, we decided because I think Ed Snyder was a little impatient then, he demanded a true number one goalie instead of letting Sergei Bobrovsky develop
and be the number one like
he was amazing, in his youth when he was here, and but impatience. But Paul Coffey was one of my favorite of these players coming in. He came in at an amazing time, and I see why the team would want to bring him in at that time, because if you think about it, the Flyers were relevant. They were a very strong team. They had just put together the Legion of Doom line back in 96, 97. And, he came in, and we all know the amazing offensive talent and the past, outlet zone passes that he was able to lay right on your stick. And, it doesn't hurt that he, when you had a playoff team, to add a guy that's already won 4 Stanley Cups to his credit and 3 Norris trophies. So, that just a great, great signing, but again, he was 35 years old when they finally brought him in. So it just continues and continues on, as you alluded to with Beezer. One of the best American-born goalies of all time. I think he's now second behind Ryan Miller in all-time wins for American goalies.
Yeah.
And the funny thing I didn't remember was the fact that he was 5'8".
Yeah, he's not a very large gentleman.
I mean, I was thinking he was 6 foot or something like that, but 5'8". He was able to achieve 374 wins in the NHL at being 5'8". I mean, that's some of the kids, that are playing Pee Wee hockey for me, that I coach.
Are 5'8"?
5'8", yes.
Oh,
Some of these, kids are huge nowadays, but but
see,
it's
when
just
we
crazy.
were kids, man, it was just equipment running around,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, but see, I'm with you on that though. You know what I mean? Like, just, and then
But again, he was 35 years old.
Exactly.
He was 35 years old, but it helped. At least he was able to provide a little stepping stone from the Ron Hextall era, when he was getting ready to retire, and then, help the team stay relevant, making the playoffs 2 consecutive years that he was there,
Yeah,
So
no, I agree.
That one, we got some use out of him for sure.
Exactly.
Not like
and he was a fan favorite.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And that was right when we got Czechmonic that came in, right around when Czechmonic was coming in, and we got the Cranium Carum and all that other great stuff, a little nod to JJ. And the other one I thought was really amazing that I was so the anniversary year, and they brought Peter Forsberg in. And I was like, oh my God, because Peter Forsberg, he was like one of my favorite players.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, watching him play was just amazing. The stuff that he was able to do, you had to pick your jaw up off the ground watching him do stuff, and how he scored, and just the moves that he had to get open, or the moves that he had to deke out goalies. I mean, let's face it, he was going up against the likes of Patrick Waugh, Martin Brodeur, Dominic Hasek. That's the guys he was going up against.
Some elite goaltenders, for sure.
So, and Peter Forsberg just was magic. He had such hands, and oh my gosh! But
he was still able to produce when he did come here, though. He was, of course, limited, like Lindros was. He was kind of injury prone. And but I mean, he still put up 115 points in 2 or 3 seasons with the Flyers, 2 seasons with the Flyers. And I mean, if you can remember, every single person in that stadium in those years had a Peter Forsberg jersey on. Everybody loved him, and it was an amazing pickup for the team. But yet again, he was 32, 33 years old when he finally came here, and, beaten down by the way he played, and just that era of hockey was a lot more, bats and bruises afterwards, and
clinching and grabbing and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So, you really felt it after every game. It's not like today where, it's 2-hand touch out there, but
everybody's pushing with their sticks.
For sure.
Everybody's, pushing with their sticks, and it's like, whatever. But no, I mean, Yeah, I mean, that was the sad part though, because all of his foot injuries and it prevented him from playing in so many of the games that he could have played in,
Crucial
and
games, yeah, he missed.
yeah, and I really feel that if he would have been able to stay healthy or maintain, he could have been one of those guys that could have made it,
Mm.
that could have stayed with the Flyers and still would have been productive for another couple of years
Well,
on top
just
of what he was.
right, just like Pronger. I mean,
Yeah.
he elite talent before coming here, and he just once he got here, it looked like he could stay for a while, but just injuries got the best of him.
Well, when you catch one straight bean to the face,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, man, I was watching that game and I have never heard a player on the ice out yell or out decibel the crowd. And he did. And that crowd just instantly was like you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. When he got hit, I was like, whoa. Because I've never seen that before. I've watched a lot of hockey and I have never seen a guy get hit like that and just be in such pain. But look what happened to him. I mean, look at the injury that he sustained because of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, hats off to the guy.
Bad luck for the Flyers. But to get back to Peter Forsberg, I think the one guy on this list that really had me in a similar situation, once he arrived, just, ready and willing to see him the first time he stepped on the ice was Jaromir Jagr. An amazing talent.
You mean the Flyer killer?
Yes.
That was brought in to be on the team.
Yes. For so many years, I can think back to me and my dad going to see games against, the arch rivals and seeing Lemieux and him just tear apart the Flyers every time. But, even though it was the Penguins, those two were just amazing to watch together. And then, I was so happy that Jagr was able to step out of Lemieux's shadow and be the player that he was in his own right. By himself and carry that team afterwards and so many other teams after he left Pittsburgh. It was great. I mean, but again, the Flyers, brought him in at 39, but he was still relevant at age 39. He was still relevant at 45.
Okay.
He could probably still be one of the better Flyers now.
Now, can we get him now? Now, can we have him now? Okay. All I'm going to say to you is this, okay? I was beside myself with the thought of Jagr coming here to the Flyers. I was like, are you kidding? You're bringing in the Flyer killer. I mean, this guy has lit this team up over the years, and now you're bringing him in. And then when you brought him in, and I was like, whoa, and I really got to learn a lot more about him. Because, you obviously, you learn the fact that he's really good, so you hate the fact that he plays for the rival. Yeah. And you hate him because he plays for the rival, and he's good, and you hate him even more because he's good, right? And then he comes to your team, and you're like, whoa. And then you start learning about the guy, and you start learn about the kind of work ethic that he had.
That's what I was going to say, yes.
Yeah, and then you start learning about how he's the first one there and the last one to leave. And how he is one of those guys where he leads by example, and if you don't toe the line, whack! He'll smack you upside the head and be like, "Hey, what are you doing, punk?" I mean, to see, at that age, you can do that at that age. You know what I mean? But to see him have that kind of leadership, to see him have that kind of work ethic and everything else, and then putting him out there on the ice with Claude Giroux and what that did to Giroux and the immediate impact that it had on the team, the chemistry of the team, and Giroux. That was, like you say, the two banners hanging from the Wells Fargo or the First Union Center or whatever center it was at that time, right? That
Right.
would have been the two banners, Yager and Giroux hanging from the banner. And what did the Flyers do?
They didn't re-sign him.
They said, nah, we don't want to sign you for $3 million. We just paid you $3 million, but we don't want to sign you for $3.5 million.
Right.
What?
Yeah. And that was, like you said, that was the first and I believe the last elite player that Giroux has ever got to play with. Giroux has gotten to play with the Hartnells and the Wayne Simmons and stuff, and great players in their own right. 20 goal scorers every year.
Yep.
Sean Couturier's, great, but
yep.
not elite. And you saw what bringing somebody like him, even at age 39, did for that Flyers team in 1 year, and what it did for Giroux in that one season. And this is what I keep stressing this point about, guys. The Flyers have been riding Giroux's coattails for far too long and haven't given him the appropriate help or partner in crime that he needs to carry this team.
See, they thought Voracek was going to be the guy, and he just wasn't.
And he wasn't, and they didn't do anything about it for, 9 or 10 years?
See, that's the other thing that kills me. They not only did they not do anything about it, but they re-signed him to this huge contract.
Right.
I have a hard time with paying a guy that's that kind of money when you're not even a point per game player. He's at 0.74 and he's a minus player, and it's like, what made him deserve to get that kind of? That's kind of where I have a hard time here with some of the stuff that's going on here with the Flyers, because it's like you get this guy who comes in and he's really good, and then he gets to the Flyers and then he stinks.
Right. Well, the Flyers have a history of not utilizing the players well or not matching them up well. Giroux is an elite playmaker, and Voracek is a very good playmaker. But that's all well and good if you want to just pass the puck around the zone.
He tells you what's going on.
But at the end of the day, who's going to put the puck in the net? You're playing. You're paying two players. $8 million plus a season.
Let's say
nobody can put the puck in the net.
Yeah, you're paying them two guys $18 million a year for two guys to pass the puck to who? To each other.
Right.
And then what? They're going to pass it back to each other. You know what I mean? So I have a hard time with that. That to me shows a serious lack of understanding of the job of general manager.
Right.
Okay. And that was something that Hextall did. I mean, he re-signed Voracek. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to, but he did. There was so many. It's like I talked about a couple of shows ago, where if they would have fired AV at the end of last season, all the moves that were made this past off season would have been different, because it would have been a different coach. You wouldn't have been building around Hayes and AV system. You would have been building around something else. Mm-hmm. So the moves you made would have been completely different, and the players that you brought in would have been completely different. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like the pattern just keeps continuing on here.
It does. The last one was really one of my favorite players outside the Flyers for a long time was Vinny Lecavalier.
Yeah.
But that signing was amazing as it was at the time. He was 33 years old. He was beaten down. He was well past his prime. He was a very physical player at 6'4" and 215 pounds. He was basically what it is to be a Flyer. He played the game the right way. He hit everything that moved. He fought his own fights. He could score. He could pass. He was an elite player.
I liked him. Yeah, I liked him too.
But but you didn't get the best of him. You got what was left over, and signing him to a 5-year deal that Holmgren did was just a head scratcher in my mind as well.
Yeah. And then Peter Laviolette having him as a healthy scratch for how many games? His first season and with the Flyers, he was a healthy scratch for how many games? It's like, what are you doing? Hey, man, but like there's this pattern that just seems to happen where, the Flyers seem to just they get these guys way too late. They pay way too much for them, and then they get stuck like Chuck because those guys leave, and now they have no draft picks, they have no player, and no prospects. Right?
So with all that going on in the past, say, 15 years, Drew has no heir to his throne. Nothing coming up the pike, no player development, anything like that. And we just have been paying the king's ransom to try to find somebody. But like I said earlier, why not try this with a twist? Why go out there, stop going out there rather, and going to get these geriatric players and go get somebody who's relevant now? And it's easier said than done. I get it. But teams in this salary cap era can't keep everybody. And I'm kind of working on a piece now that I didn't even speak to you about, Steel. But I'm working on something that's gonna be just that, saying just that. But if you look over the past recent, moves and this type of ability here that players have been moved when they're elite. You look at what the Las Vegas Golden Knights just did. They picked up Jack Eichel. He's not my favorite play in the world, but he can put the puck in the back of the net, and he's only 25 years old. I think he can come back from this injury, and I think he will be good for years to come for them. He's finally going to be on a winning program, and he's going to, have players to play with him. Would I have made that deal? Probably not, but they went for it. And at least they went for it on a player that's in his mid-20s.
See, you said the key word right there.
Right. A deal that I wish the Flyers would have made was the trade for Ryan Graves from the Avalanche.
Yeah.
The Devils picked him up, and their defense is better considerably, and they signed a great, free agent as well, obviously. But he's 26. Ryan Graves led the league in plus minus just a couple of years ago playing for Colorado. I think he's a very underrated player. And they didn't have to give up too terrible much for him because the Avalanche were in cap restraints. And, probably the biggest one who the Flyers were linked to was Patrick Lainey. And he's still only 23 years old, and he's, had a rough time staying healthy and everything else as of late. But you can't say that guy can't score some goals, and that's exactly what the Flyers need, is a goal scorer. Would I make that trade for him? I don't know at that time, but it would be nice when this opportunity comes up again to grasp a player that's in his prime, for the Flyers to at least take a legit stab at it. I believe the Winnipeg Jets wanted Ivan Provorov at the time for Laine, and they said no, which, I mean, Provorov plays 25 minutes a night, so I get it in that aspect. But you got to think in the bigger picture here. Even Wayne Gretzky was traded twice in his career. So it can be done. If you want a player bad enough and you think that he's going to be that guy to really turn the ship around or, really build around, you can go get him if you want.
Plus the fact that the reason why Wayne Gretzky was traded was, look what they're going to get for him.
Yeah.
So you have to outweigh the fact that you don't have this, particular player on your team. So you have this void that you have. So you better be bringing in a cat who is going to be able to fill that void or better.
Right.
Or else, why are you doing this?
If you're willing to give up a first, a second, a third for a player, why not give it up for a player in his prime? A first round pick sounds great on paper, and it could turn out to be a great player, but not always. Why not go for a sure thing?
I'm with you, but how about this? Can we have, say, the Lightning or Anaheim or maybe one of those guys do our picks for us?
Hurricanes, yeah.
Or the Hurricanes. Can we have those guys make our pick for us? Because clearly the guys with the Flyers.
It's funny that you say that, though, because I believe a retool should happen here in Philadelphia as well. I think we have some quick questions or whatever to throw at me, possibly, to see what I would do.
I always have some up my sleeve, you know what I mean? And so, all right. So last show we posed the question, if suddenly Lance was handed the keys to the kingdom and he's now the general manager and I've been named the owner. So now we're in a situation now where the Flyers are where they are. They've won a few games, but nothing spectacularly to write home about. They're beating the bottom feeders of the league.
Wasn't that very lucky that when they canceled the games, they were scheduled to play both Washington and Pittsburgh, and then when they come back, they play the Seattle Kraken.
Right, and then they're playing San Jose tonight.
Yeah,
So anyway, I digress. Yeah, and the Flyers did have one of the hardest schedules to start off the year, but so now here we are. We're approaching the first of the year. There's a new coach. What? Gosh, man, who can the Flyers? What can the Fly? You know what, Lance? I can't even ask those questions because we don't know who's going to be the next coach. We don't even know who's going to be the next general manager, if it's still going to be Chuck. You see what I mean? So, all right, if everything stays the same and we do what we predict is going to happen, where the Flyers are basically going to be like, well, Mike, you did a good job this year and you were handed extenuating circumstances. We'll give you a contract for a couple of years and see how it works out. Right? So that means that the Flyers are not going to take a risk on a coach, which we think that they should, right? Like Claude Julien, or we even mentioned a couple other coaches, that we think. Knobloch would be another one that we all feel would be a great return to Philadelphia. You know what I mean? So Paul Maurice is out there if he ever wants to come back. There's some other coaches that are out there that potentially could be good fits in Philadelphia, right? We talked about those in the last couple of shows.
Right. But I think you have to take a look at what direction you want to head the team to. Before you make that decision on a head coach, you need to make the decision on where do you want to go with your team? Do you want to rebuild? Do you want to gain youth? Do you want to just try to quick fix it like Vancouver did and snap seven games off in a row with Boudreau out there?
Well, they didn't hire Boudreau, so no, you can't do that. So you check that off the list.
Right. So, and that would be your, Claude Julien. I think he was similar, where he could snap the team together real quick with what you got. But I don't think that's
like now. You mean like if you were to say, okay, let's pull the trigger, let's get the new coach in now. Right, give him half the year with whatever the team is, like what they did in Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
Last year they brought in Sutter, however you want to say it.
Right.
They brought him in half the year. They fired the coach up there, came in, right? And then he had a half a season, a shortened half a season
Right.
to evaluate the team, right? And then had a full year of training camp, and they made all their moves and everything based off of what he was doing and all that other. So I think the Flyers need to do something very similar. So I'm with you. So the first thing that the team needs to do is decide: are we gonna do this? Are we ripping the Band-Aid off, as you said, right, in your previous articles? So I think they do need to rip the Band-Aid off and get rid of get rid of the entire coaching staff, and rehire completely new, starting with head coach.
Well, I would go with Chris Knoblauch. I believe this team needs to get younger, stronger, faster, bigger. They are very slow, and when you play a team like the Oilers and everything else, Connor McDavid is a video game, out there, I think. But just the rest of the league, you look at teams like Carolina, and they're just skating circles around us. Amazing young talent that the Flyers look like they have cement blocks on their feet compared to them.
Man. They do.
And,
I'm going to make an observation here for you. When we went to see the Carolina game against Philadelphia, right? And the second coming out for the second period, and they did the warm-ups on the other end of the ice where we were, right? They come out and do their little skate arounds and everything before the period starts. Oh, excuse me. And man, they just look bigger, thicker, faster, stronger. Yep. They have the technology. You know what I mean? So, all right. So we get Knoblauch in as the coach. Oh, we change the coach out, whatever. Okay, bring in some assistant coaches.
Right.
Okay.
So assistant coaches. I don't like the stereotypical Flyers, coaches, but I think there's two this time around that I would be at least calling. Not only would I relieve Ian LaPerriere of his duties because he had a chance to go down to the AHL and pretty much ruined what they had last year, and and he's up with the Flyers right now a little bit, helping out coach up because we haven't selected any assistant coaches either. But first off, I would want to fix that defensive coach, and I would try to bring in Darion Hatcher, great Flyers player. If you don't know or didn't read my article some months ago, where I did an article like a "Where Are They Now" on him. He bought the Sarnia Sting of the OHL when he retired with David Legwan, I think.
Yeah.
And he's been the franchise owner and head coach for some time now. I don't think he's coaching this year because he's taken a step back, but I really, really would like to see Hatcher come back in and show these guys, these young, talented guys, how to play the game the right way.
How to play defense.
Defense first, physical defense. Travis Sanheim, I'm looking at you. And I think that's been lacking. And as far as Michael Therrien's old spot, running the power play and all that stuff, I like Rick Tocchet as an assistant coach. He did very well when he was an assistant coach.
Yes.
He did not have a great win percentage as a head coach. I think Correct. That was he bit off too much, more than he could chew, if you want to say that. But he really has a knack for the players really grasping to what he's saying and liking him as a person and a coach, and he has a way of getting to them. but I think he's able to do that more as an assistant coach rather than dealing with everything else that goes on with being a head coach. And I would just like to see both of them under Knobloch, who is amazing coach in his own right, and really has the Hartford Wolfpack, the Rangers AHL affiliate right now, really looking good. High-powered offense that he runs, has a 0.667 win percentage right now this season. And he's produced some incredible players over the years in juniors when he was with the Erie Otters. I mean, you look at the obvious: Connor McDavid, Alex, help me out, DeBrincat. DeBrincat from Chicago.
Yep. Alex DeBrincat, yeah.
Yep. Sam Reinhart, Dylan Stromey, Anthony Sorelli, Eric, there's a ton. The list goes on who he's really developed. And really just amazing offensive talent come out of his way. And if you look back last season, when he took over for the Rangers as the head coach for like six games, I think, when their coach was out due to COVID, the first game that he ever got to coach as a head coach in the NHL, he beat the Flyers 9-0, if you remember that, or if you didn't happen to turn that game off halfway through. Immediately.
Yes.
And that was a struggling Rangers team prior to that. And he really kind of had them running on all paces with that offense he runs. So
I like it, man.
I think that the direction that I would go with him being coach is to build it back younger and faster. And he's that coach to be able to run that type of offense, speed kills and talent. Get some talent and develop talent, and he's very good at that as well.
So now I like that approach. I really, really like that approach. But I might even go a step different.
Okay.
Just a side step different. Mm-hmm. Because I would either bring in like Julian as the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I'll tell you what, man, I really like that idea of bringing Talk in as an assistant coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I also like the idea of Knobloch as the assistant coach to run the offense, right? And, of course, we talked about how much I would love to have Darion Hatcher doing the defense, right? I would be all down with that, right? But what I would do is I would bring in a guy like Julian or even Paul Maurice. I would even consider him too. But then I would bring in a guy like Knobloch to run the offense and maybe the power play, right? And then have Hatcher come in and be the defense, and then Tocchet be the penalty kill and whatever else.
Yeah, you gotta have a coach that's going to be willing to let them do their job, and I don't think Hacks did that when he was here.
Yeah,
he wanted to control a little too much, and it's not really working out for him in Seattle either. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe Julian might not be the head coach guy. Maybe a guy like Paul Maurice might be a better choice as a head coach, because Julian doesn't have a good history of allowing the young players to come in and play, just based off what he did in Boston. But
still effective in his own right, for sure. But I think that's not the direction that the team's not there. They're not just a player away from contention.
Right. Exactly.
They need to kind of retool and rebuild, and I think that's why I would go with that younger coach. Maybe Paul Maurice would be better suited for that. I think Winnipeg has had some great young talent develop there. So it would be definitely some names to be called for some interviews for sure, but a new direction for sure.
See, okay. So we are both in agreement that we feel that something should be done sooner rather than later. Like, don't wait until the end of the season. Do it now. Pull the trigger now, right? Because Now, we talked about coaches and assistant coaches. Are we pulling the trigger on the general manager too? Because the reason why I'm asking you that, and I don't know if this was part of your article or not, but if we want to go, if the Flyers want to, if the Flyers want to go into a different direction, that's going to have to start from the top, meaning that it's going to have to be away from what Chuck Fletcher is doing. Does that, I mean, am I making sense on that?
Yes and no. I think that I would give Fletcher credit for what he did for AV, in the sense before the season,
Yeah.
and him going out there and giving his coach this year everything that his system needed to succeed. And maybe I definitely don't think I would pull the Ryan Ellis. That's a lot of years for a guy that's already 30, still left on his contract. But that was kind of out of desperation too. So where AV definitely lost the locker room and his way, I think that Chuck Fletcher showed that he could go out and he could get stuff done, bringing in Atkinson, and all those smaller players, Brassards and all that fit AV's system, and going out and getting a big name defenseman that's physical and rest of the line. And so I think he has the ability to make those moves. I might be willing to keep him on a short leash, to see if he could possibly do it for a new coach if he saw that same direction that we're looking at. If I was in your shoes, with being the owner or team president, I would sit him down and say, hey, look, AV obviously didn't work, but you made some moves.
The next one better.
The next one better. And this is the direction that I want to see the team go. I want to see him go young. I just don't see that many GMs out there currently that are available. All the good ones are with a team currently.
There's some ones that we talked about that might potentially be an interesting dynamic. You know what I mean? Like, I think if the Flyers approach Danny Briere to be the general manager, that might be an interesting dynamic.
I think in that aspect, I would want to see he has knowledge and skill for days, but he lacks NHL level experience in that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same token, it's somebody different.
What do you have to lose at this point?
I don't know. I really don't trust a ex-Flyer. I'm just kind of over the Bobby Clarks and the Paul Holmgrens.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't trying to bring him. Yeah, no.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's just kind of like,
it does kind of just. It's like fingers across the chalkboard. It is, right? It's like, don't do that again. Come on. No, you want to get away from that. You want outside the box.
Yeah, for sure. Both of those guys hung around way too long, in management and stuff like that, and made some really bad choices that got us to the point we're at. And I just, even though he's a different person entirely, and I don't know, I just don't want to go that route. I would rather see somebody come in out of the organization.
Yeah. Okay. See, that's my only problem. I just don't have an idea of who to put in there at the moment. I mean, you obviously. Right. I would definitely put you in there as a general manager because I know things would get done. And I know that you'd be picking deals and players to put on the ice that are going to play the Flyer way, and they're going to play for the logo on the front. With all that being said, that basically means that Giroux has to go now.
As I said in my article, yes. If we're going to do a movement to get younger and faster and better, why not go and trade Giroux now, rip the Band-Aid off, as we said.
Yep, and JVR,
well,
if we can.
I'm getting there. He's 33 years old, Claude Giroux is, and why not get something for him while we still can? Yep. And, a team that we already mentioned is a team that I would probably be calling because they are sitting, I think, second in the Pacific, and that would be the Ducks right now. Their GM just is doing it right. They have so many players that are youthful and just breaking out onto this Ducks team. They can't seem to even keep them in the AHL long enough to do anything. They just are bursting at the seams to get to the NHL. And, with Trevor Zegras, Sonny Milano, Jamie Drysdale, Sam Steele, now Mason McTavish, who I was very, very big on before the draft and leading up to the draft. Just immense talent there, but most of them are young. You do have some older players out there, Getzlaff and stuff like that, but I think Giroux would be a nice, mix in that. But of course, we would have to eat some salary too.
Not that much.
I think we would have to eat some Giroux salary, and that I would be okay with it.
Only half of it.
Right.
Or whatever, prorated, whatever prorated it is.
Sure, whatever prorated it is, I would be willing to eat that the rest of the season because we're going to get back youth, and that's going to go away. We're not going to have to retain salary for a year or two or anything like that. It's just going to be for this year and this year alone. But some proven prospects that are still there for the Ducks, I would want to see get back would be Sean Shigell from the Calgary Hitmen. He was a 5th-round pick from them, a little bit down from these guys. Elite level sniper there, maybe a Sam Colangelo, a Sasha Pastervo.
You know what, though, Lance? Listen, look, I agree with what you're saying, but I would much rather, if I'm getting Giroux,
right,
then I want McTavish or I want somebody.
I don't think that's a nice thought, but you're not going to get McTavish, who's 18 and doing it in the NHL already. I think you're going to have to settle for maybe a 2nd-round pick and a
second-tier player.
Second-tier prospect.
Like the guys you were talking about.
Right. A couple of those. I would want a couple of those.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay.
I want a 2nd-round pick because the Flyers don't have a 2nd-round pick. And I would want a couple of those guys.
Okay. All right.
That are maybe a year away.
Yes, sir.
If we're picking from Anaheim, like I said, all their guys who are up already are up and they're staying up. They're not bouncing back down to the AHL. They're, sticking up with the Ducks, and they're going to be there, and they're their future. I don't think they're going to be willing to get rid of any of them. They have some big salaries coming off the books, and they're going to be able to retain them for a while. Their GM is pretty smart in that token, and he's setting them up for the future. And they just might bite on Giroux if asked, because I think they are experiencing a lot more success than they thought they would be at this point. A lot of their youth is there and contributing and being major contributors. They might want to take a stab at it one more time while Hiller's still there, because he's getting older as well. But I mean, a phenomenal goaltender that is underrated in my book. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Anaheim has just been playing phenomenal this year. They've been one of the California teams that have basically just outshined all the rest. You know what I mean? And they, at one point there, were leading the division. So, I mean, ultra impressed with what they've been doing. And I would not have a problem with being a dance partner with them when it comes to Giroux in those second level guys, and I don't mean second level guys meaning that they're not good. It's just that they're
They're
2
probably
years
better
away.
than any of our prospects.
Right, but they're
They're
2
second
years
tier guys.
away.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, so that's
For
why I'm
sure.
saying they're second tier guys because they're not like the McTavishes or the Zegrases or the guys like that. You know what I mean? They're just not yet because they're still behind yet. You know what I mean? Because they're still young.
But with how many home runs they've hit in drafting those players, I believe that these are two of the big Sam Colangelo, who we interviewed, and Chagall, who I've had on my mock draft boards before, hoping that the Flyers would select them, are the type of players that the Flyers need. Sasha Pasternak too. Just elite level snipers and can get it done, and definitely team players. The Flyers anyway need to make some moves probably for a year or so to get up some cap space, which alludes us to the next player that I would try to move this season, and that would be James Van Riemsdyk.
Yeah.
Definitely is a streaky player. We all know that he's hot right now. And,
so hurry up and trade him now.
Yes. So hurry up and trade him, right? If you can think back, man, he's been quiet all season long. And he does this every year. He heats up and he scores some goals, and that's great. But if you're getting paid $7 million a year, I'm going to need you to be on every night.
I mean,
every night.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's an albatross contract. It's an albatross contract. It's weighing the Flyers down from doing anything or making any major moves that are going to be helpful for the future.
Yeah, I'm with you.
He has 2 years. He has 2 years left this year and next year. Yeah. So a team that I would trade him to, it wouldn't be a bargain like you're going to get for Giroux.
Oh, I know where you're going
what I mean?
with this already.
But what you need to do is dump him to somebody that needs him. He's going to use him. And I've already written an article on this before, but I would turn him loose to the Arizona Coyotes, a team that the Flyers have, obviously been trade partners with in the past. With both Gostisbehere, them taking him off our hands, and with Chris Pronger's contract as well. They've helped us out a lot before, and this team needs a player like James Van Riemsdyk, because for some reason hockey players just don't want to go to the desert to play. They don't want to sign there. And I don't know why. Maybe it's the fact that the Coyotes can't seem to pay their bills and have to be bought out by or helped out by the NHL. I think they were getting ready to lock the doors on their ice rink because they don't pay their bills. So just a lot of struggles right there. And I think that the Coyotes are going to have immense trouble in signing free agents, as if they don't already. But I think it's going to get even worse with all the trouble that they're having, and almost bankruptcy and everything. So, people like to get paid for their, when they work. I don't know, something.
Have you ever been to Arizona?
No.
Okay. So see, you have never even been there. And I asked you if you've been there, and you have that reaction.
Yeah.
Okay. I have had the distinct honor and privilege of being there, not once, but more than a couple of times. Mm-hmm. And there are certain times of the year that you don't go there because of specific reasons. Because I'm telling you, I don't care what anybody says. Oh, it's 110 in the shade. It's still 110.
It's a dry heat.
It's still a dry heat that will kill you.
Right.
Look. No. You can only go so far, and then that's it, right? In the summertime or when it's hot. You can only strip down to what the Lord gave you, and then that's it. Okay, after that, you're done. In the wintertime, you can always throw another log on the fire, put another jacket on, put a blanket on, put on another pair of sweatpants, put on a sweatshirt, turn the heat up. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm just not a fan of the heat. So Arizona is not any place I would want to go near or to live there or to have a career there. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, no, that's cool. I'm good.
Yeah.
And apparently a lot of NHL players kind of have that same
Right.
have that same opinion.
Well, and Phil Kessel is a guy that wants to leave. He's already stressed that he
Yeah.
wants to get out of there, and he has an expiring contract that is, I think,
Hey, you know what, Phil? They got really good cheesesteaks in Philly, buddy.
he likes hot dogs.
Well, I what?
Right,
Have a cheesesteak.
right. So Phil Kessel gets paid $200,000 less than
JVR.
JVR, and he has an expiring contract this year. So essentially, if we traded them, and maybe it would need to kick in something to get the deal done, fourth or pick or something like that. I don't know. You would have to get them on the line first. But
maybe you could sprinkle in like a Morgan Frost or a Sandheim or something.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Maybe not on this show, but
right. So that Phil Kessel wants to leave. He's one of the the highest power play guys of the past 10 years. Still getting it done. He could come in and provide some offense, and we wouldn't have to sign him back next year, giving us $7 million of cap space.
Yeah.
So, even if we had to eat potentially $1 million or $2 million of
I think what the new CBA is, I believe it's
the percentage
50% of a salary if it's past a certain number of years, and then if it's not past a certain number of years, it decreases incrementally the amount of money.
I'm not 100% sure. With just the 1 year left, I don't know what the percentage would be.
They change
it. They change it all the time.
Low.
I think it would be
low.
I think it would even be 20 to 30% of that.
Maybe even less.
Yeah. So I would be okay with eating that for one season if it got the job done, and we could have potentially $5-6 million.
Yeah.
To spend.
That's still $5-6 million to spend, because we're going to need to get a second. We need another goalie because we don't have Martin Jones not signed after this year.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's so many things. It's like this huge laundry list.
You're jumping ahead, sir. You're jumping ahead.
Well, all right. Hey, look, man, we only have.
Right.
Well, there's only so much time.
So, yep. But that's how I would gain some cap space. I would try to sell that. Phil Kessel wants out. Arizona is going to need a scorer, and JVR is 20 goal scorer, now 25 goal scorer. He was a 35 goal scorer in his career.
Right.
So I don't think that they would be able to gain that in the offseason once Phil Kessel leaves. So I think they might be willing to take on that deal to get a proven goal scorer there. Yes, he's streaky, but he's still somehow at the end of the year ends up with 20 goals, 25 goals. Which
is just the same as JVR. And the only difference is that we get rid of that extra year from JVR, and we might free up anywhere from $5 to $6 million of cap space. So I would take that deal.
Right.
So now you did mention about an article that you have that's coming up, right? And can you tell me when?
I think it is coming up probably within the next day or two. I'm going to try to get it all squared away and edited possibly tomorrow.
Okay. Awesome sauce. Great. Yeah. That's awesome, dude. Oh, look, I'll tell you what, man. There's so much that we could talk about with this team, and there's so much of the great articles that you write, Lance, that really bring to light not just what's going on, even this nostalgic video article that we talked about, but it still brings to light what's going on with this team now. it still is relevant to what's going on with this team now because they're still stepping into the same doo-doo piles and they're still making the same mistakes that they did back then.
Right.
It's just, it just keeps on going. But so in a couple of days for your next article. And so now where can we get you? Where can we find you? How can we follow you, my man?
Sure. Yeah. All those moves we just talked about, I think, would be before this season ends.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. And that's leading us into the off season. So we'll stop there to cut the show reasonably time, I guess.
It's like we can't pack it all in. It's like there's so much. There's so much.
So it'll make good for leading up to the next show. So anyway, you guys know you can always catch me and my work on Flyers Nitty Gritty, Bleacher Report, SteelFlyers.com. It's all there. Please, follow me. I'm always on Twitter. I check my Twitter and Facebook,
for sure,
flyer groups and everything. If you hit me up, I'll try to message back. On Twitter, I'm LNGBASSIST. The number's 39.
That's one of the things, Lance, that I really appreciate about you is that, not only that, I get to do a show with you and I gotten to know you over the year and everything like that. But you were one of the few writers that when I first started talking to you that actually I would read your article and then I would be able to say, hey, man, I like this part of the article. And then we could have a conversation about it, on social media, like either on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever the case is. You know what I mean? So listen, guys, don't be afraid to hit us up, ask us questions, don't be afraid to submit questions. We would love to answer the questions, man. We're going to probably do a show about that here, probably coming up real soon. We'll have a bunch of questions that you guys could submit to us, and we'll do another question and answer show. We had fun doing that a little while ago. So, Lance, thank you for all the great articles you put out there, man. Thanks for all the great work that you do. Thanks for Flyers Nitty Gritty for helping to post us and helping to get us out there. That's the Hockey Writers Inc. salute. Mucho apreciado to Flyers Nitty Gritty and the great Jamie Baskow and all the help and support from you guys. Really appreciate that. So thank you very much for checking us out. I'm SteelFlyers. You can find me on Twitter at SteelFlyers52. Thanks for watching the Hockey Writers Inc. We will catch you on the next episode. Have a great and happy and wonderful and blessed Happy New Year, Lance.
I appreciate it. Same to you, sir.
Thank you very kindly. And the same to all you folks out there in the land. Please have a great, blessed, and happy and safe New Year. We'll catch you in the new year the next time on the Hockey Writers Inc.